Ideal mesmo para o mundo atual seria fazer o ensino médio junto com o curso técnico, certo? É no Senac que o aluno tem autonomia de verdade, formação cidadã, foco na diversidade, preparação pro Enem, material didático sem taxas e muito mais. Na real, tem tudo que você precisa para se sentir preparado para a vida. Seja para entrar no mundo do trabalho ou te ajudar a decidir o que fazer na faculdade. Quer saber? Senac. Vem comigo. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino-médio-técnico.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
And joining us now on Katz and Cosby, as all of you, this is big news from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court on the Pennsylvania Senate race. Breaking news, Judge Weinberg.
So you had in Pennsylvania Democratic county election commissioners counting votes that should not have been counted because they were undated or misstated, not signed, and they said, we're going to do it anyway because they want to do it anyway.
Yeah, the commissioner or something says, we're going to do it anyway.
We're going to do it anyway. We don't care what the law is. Everybody breaks the law. Supreme Court of the state of Pennsylvania said, oh, no, you're not going to count those Senate votes at all if they're not properly dated.
Happy days are here again. The skies above.
Well, you know what that means?
Happy days.
Pennsylvania is following the law.
Right.
Is the rule of law coming back?
Hopefully. By the way, it's the right decision, obviously.
For a fact. What did they do in 2020?
What they did is they totally violated the state law. They allowed votes to be counted that shouldn't have been counted because they were late under the state law. Republicans went to the U.S. Supreme Court to try to intervene, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, it's not our problem. We'll see what happens down the road.
Can you believe that?
That was absolutely a bad decision by U.S. Supreme Court.
And finally doing the right thing. Let's see, by the way, if Bob Casey finally concedes.
He hasn't conceded because the lawyers are collecting a lot of money. Oh, by the way, did you see Oprah didn't get $1 million?
Yes, that's right.
She got $2.5 million.
2.5 to her production company.
And show up and say, oh, things are great. We love Kamala. $2.5 million.
I would have done it for a lot cheaper.
I would have done it for $1 million.
I would have done it for $999.
Peter King and I will split it.
There you go, right?
But there's no guarantee. I wouldn't have voted for her.
Yeah, you still would have taken the money.
I would have taken the money.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know how much money was glommed by these political operatives in the Democratic
$1
Party?
billion.
That's right.
Billion. And they still owe money. They still owe money.
They owe $20
million.
Wow.
Wait, there's another song.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Well, amongst ourselves, me, Congressman King, and a judge, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rita. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you guys very much, and I love spending my birthday with all of you here on Katz
and now you can drink legally.
And before,
thank you. Finally,
we make a disclosure that before that we had a Carvel cake for your birthday.
It was delicious.
And it was delicious.
It was so good, and I love you guys, and it's great spending my birthday with you guys. This is a special birthday, and to be with special people who I love, and all of you awesome listeners, thank you guys.
John, I'm just not happy you mentioned
the truth.
John mentioned the birthday cake. I tell my wife I don't eat when I come in, and now she's listening. She's going to know that I had ice cream cake.
It was really good, Rosemary. Really good.
Really good.
Thank you for the cake.
Ice cream cake. Then eat that other.
It was good.
I'm trying to figure out what was sweeter, the cake or the singing. I'm trying to figure out. Both of it was great. Thank you, guys. Love you all, and love all of our great listeners, too. Thank you.
Well, what else is going on, guys?
Biden looks like he's edging us to World War III. This is incredible. Now finally saying, well, Ukraine, you can use these long-range missiles. You can use them to get into Russia. He's leaving office in 2 months. Peter King, this is incredible.
Yeah, I may disagree with you to this extent in that since there's thousands and thousands of North Korean troops coming in, giving this to Zelensky now can increase his bargaining position when Trump comes in to negotiate.
Maybe he should have said we might do it to begin with, as opposed to
absolutely.
this long.
Should have
Come
done a year ago.
on.
Should have
I'll
done a
tell
year
you,
ago.
if Biden is giving permission to, I can never pronounce it.
Zelensky, yeah.
to shoot Russia, I think Putin is too smart to get ourselves into World War III. I think what Putin will do to get even with Zelensky is level Kiev.
Well, I hope not. I
hope
still want
not.
Ukraine. I still side with Ukraine. Putin is a war criminal, and I think again Biden handled it badly. Hopefully, Trump can negotiate
Biden has
something.
handled everything badly.
It's
Okay.
horrible.
By the way, what else did he do? What else did he do?
He got us into a jam in the Afghanistan. He got us into
Absolutely,
a jam.
absolutely.
No, what else did he do?
Israel.
Israel.
Oh, with
What is Biden-
Israel.
what
This
is
is
Biden gonna
horrible.
do?
First, he is basically lifting some sanctions against Hamas and
horrible.
Hezbollah, and he's blaming Israel and saying, you know what, they need to step up.
No,
This
and he's
guy,
sanctioning Israel,
This
too.
guy is a disgrace.
Can I
Judge
make this
Weinberg,
political?
a disgrace.
And I'll ask Judge Weinberg, how could any Jewish person have voted for Biden? I mean that seriously. I'm not trying to score a cheap point.
My people like to think of themselves as pretty smart. Well, they've distinguished themselves by not being very smart.
And guess what? The voting rolls, you guys, last night I was surprised. I was at Zionist Organization of America, myself and Professor Dershowitz, who'll be coming up. Wonderful group. They were so great. By the way, and they also wished me a nice happy birthday, which was beautiful.
Did you get ice cream cake there?
You know what? I got some other stuff, not ice cream cake. I got some other stuff. You know, they're good. But what happened was they talked about the Israeli vote. It was 30%. Last
Jewish
election,
vote.
the Jewish vote.
Jewish vote in the United
and
States.
guess what? 30% this time. How could the Jewish people not more support President Trump at the end of the day?
Well, let's blame Sid Rosenberg. Let's blame the judge.
Perfect. All right, good.
I mean,
it's always good.
It makes sense. I mean,
By the way, John, you also talked about Russia. Let's talk about that ballet dancer who suddenly criticized Putin.
She criticized Putin. She fell out of the fifth floor.
What a surprise.
Surprise.
He.
Listen, you know what the lesson is? Stay out of windows.
Also, John, didn't we talk
And
about,
don't criticize Putin.
Don't criticize Putin.
didn't we talk about Spirit Airlines going
Tell
bankrupt?
me about Spirit Airlines. They just filed bankruptcy.
Yeah, I know something about this. JetBlue and Spirit were going to have a merger. And historically what's happened is when the Democrats and Republicans, if there's problems, they try to mitigate them. But in this state, not only did the Justice Department go against it, Tish James, the Attorney General in New York, where JetBlue has its headquarters, they come out against this. It's a cheap political stunt. As a result of that, thousands of people could lose their jobs. You could have airlines going under.
And JetBlue might file bankruptcy, too. Who knows?
It's just very bad for the airline industry, and it was done out of cheap politics. And there's, unfortunately, thousands of jobs at stake.
Yeah, big
and service to people who fly.
Well, we're talking to Charlie
Okay,
Gasparino
we
later
have
on that.
Lara on. Why don't you bring her in, Rita?
Absolutely. Of course, RNC co-chairperson and daughter-in-law of President-elect Donald Trump, Lara Trump. Great to have you here, Lara.
Hi, guys. Great to be back with you.
We're thrilled. By the way, and this is my birthday, Lara, so you're our first guest on my birthday,
gosh.
so I'm thrilled.
Happy birthday. What an honor. Thanks for having me on.
We're thrilled to have you, Lara. And by the way, congratulations. First off, this weekend, it was amazing to watch your father-in-law walk into MSG, at the UFC fights. He got a hero's welcome. I mean, it's been extraordinary. How is he doing? How are you guys doing?
Oh my gosh, he's doing incredible. I mean, to see that welcome, and look, my husband was there. I was fortunate enough over the summer to go with him to one of those UFC fights at the Prudential Center, and I can tell you it was electric. Eric told me that this was like 10 times that, and I think the incredible thing to see is that you're starting to get a vibe across the country that people are now unafraid, 100% unafraid to show their support for Donald Trump. Look, the prize fight, the last one of the night, you see the guy wins and he does the Donald Trump dance and points at my father-in-law. It's amazing. You see it on football fields. It's everywhere. But I think Americans feel lighter. I think we feel hopeful. And I think people are unafraid to finally say, yes, I voted for Donald Trump, and I'm going to wear a MAGA hat, and I'm going to do the Trump dance. And I couldn't be prouder of him. And I know he's doing incredibly well, working hard, obviously, on his cabinet and all of his administration, and cannot wait until January 20th rolls around.
Lara, are you surprised that so many more people are saying, yes, I voted for Donald Trump too?
It's amazing, John. It's amazing to see. I would say I'm surprised, but I'm almost not, because this is the same sentiment that I've felt across the country. And I think we kind of reached a breaking point. And November 5th was it was really kind of a turning point in our country's history. And I think America chose the right direction for our future and for the future of the world, really. And I think Americans are finally proud to say that we are the United States again. We have a cheerleader who is going to be back in the White House. And I think the mandate that was delivered with 312 electoral votes, the popular vote by 5 million votes, the House, the Senate, overwhelmingly, people came out to support Donald Trump. So, John, I would say, yeah, you're in good company if you're out there with a MAGA hat or with a Trump flag on the top of your house. I think that is what this country has been yearning for. We have wanted a fighter and a champion. We got it back with Donald Trump for 4 more years, and I could not be more excited.
I agree. Lara, I describe it even better. There's 3,144 counties in the United States of America. Well, Harris only won like 525.
Wow.
Okay?
There you go.
That describes it even better. And I'm going to give you one more talking point. Ready? See, of all the states that Harris won, all of them, of the states she won, no voter ID. What does that mean?
I wonder why, John.
Are millions of listeners listening right now give me the reason why?
Must be a coincidence.
Must be a coincidence.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, it must be a coincidence. Listen, here's what I can tell you. We had 2 jobs at the RNC that we gave ourselves when Michael Watley and I took things over. We said we're going to get out the vote. We're going to protect the ballot. And election integrity was our number one focus in this election. And I think it paid off in spades. It's why there was no funny business. There was no question about anything. We still have attorneys on the ground, by the way, in Pennsylvania, because they are trying to cause something.
Well, in case you haven't learned, the breaking news are.
Yes, ready? Supreme Court.
The Judge, tell us the Supreme Court ruling in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania Supreme Court, Lara, said very simply that if it's not dated properly, the vote doesn't count,
Correct.
Directing the county commissioners
that happened about 20 minutes ago.
To count those votes.
They reiterated what we won
exactly
on November 1st, the case that they already
Well,
adjudicated.
but the same Supreme Court didn't say that in 2020.
Right, but we had to fight for that, and we had to ensure election integrity. And I'll tell you, one of the measures to ensure that you have election integrity is to make sure that people are using voter ID. That is integral to our system here in America. And when you have states like the state of California, where Gavin Newsom, the governor there, has overwhelmingly said, you do not need an ID. And not only that, we don't want you to take out an ID to vote. If you take it out, you almost get in trouble in California. It's ridiculous. And this is an issue that almost 90% of Americans agree on. Only American citizens should be voting in American elections, and you should have to prove who you are before you vote in the United States. And so I do think it's a real issue that I hope that we see taken up over the next 4 years and talked about, and maybe we have some kind of movement in Congress on, because I think that it is foundational to our country to have voter ID, to ensure only American citizens are voting, and to ensure election integrity. And I don't know what else I can say, John, but it's very coincidental that all the states Kamala Harris won no voter ID.
100% I agree with you. Now, the other one, Governor Newsom, maybe you have to ask Kimberly, because she knows Governor Newsom. How can he afford a new house in South Carolina that he just bought the new house the last few days or the last few weeks for $9.1 million on a governor's salary?
Wow. Isn't that the question? How is it Nancy Pelosi's got such a nice house on a congresswoman's salary? How is it that all these people seem to have nice houses with walls around them to secure them in their homes on these salaries? It is a great question, and I think we all know the answer to that question. And it's gross. It's what people don't like about politics. And I'll tell you, it's one of the things that I think people like the most about Donald Trump. He can't be bought. He can't be paid for. He's a person, don't forget, in 2015, until he became the Republican nominee, who funded his own campaign, didn't take a single penny from any outside entity, from any single donor. And I think it's why people love him so much. He's authentic to the core, and he's only doing this because he knows he can do the job necessary to save our country.
110%.
More politicians like Donald Trump.
I know him longer than you do.
That's true.
And
I'll take that, John. You can win that one.
Thank you. And what was the other thing I
Yeah,
wanted to
actually,
say?
yeah. And Lara, by the way, first of all, let's talk about you. What about
Senate.
the Florida?
Are you going to run for the Senate?
Yes, Lara, we love you. We love you. You know, I have North Carolina ties too. I love it.
Florida.
DeSantis said,
No,
right.
Florida, the Trumps won Florida by 1 million votes.
Handily.
So, Lara, you're going to win by at least 1 million votes.
Yeah. So, Lara, what are your plans? Because there's even reports that DeSantis might want to put himself in. What are you thinking?
Well, listen, this is obviously up to the governor, and I thought his post on X was very appropriate. I think that's exactly the kind of person who should be serving in Marco Rubio's Senate seat. And I have not had a conversation with him, but listen, I do know the Make America Great Again, America First agenda better than anyone. I've lived it for 9 years right alongside Donald Trump. I know the people of Florida. I've been a Florida resident for 3.5 years. And I've been really honored to serve as co-chair of the RNC throughout the duration of this campaign. And so, listen, if I'm asked to serve in the capacity of the United States Senate, it's something I would seriously consider. And I think we need great people in the Senate. We need confirmations for Donald Trump. We need people over the course of the next 4 years during Donald Trump's term who are going to work alongside of him to deliver the mandate that the American people said we must have. We want our country back. We want a closed border. We want more money in our pocket. We want no new wars. We want to end what's going on in the Middle East and in Europe. And so if it's something I'm asked to do, it would truly be an honor.
And we're there to support you.
Yes.
So God bless you and God bless America. And thank you so much for coming on. And we love you. And I hope you get it done.
Absolutely. And Lara, congrats. You kicked butt on this race. He got 76 million votes, more than any Republican ever. And that's a huge testament to you.
Someday when we find out who killed Kennedy, we're going to find out how Joe Biden got 81 million votes.
Yeah, but hopefully sooner than that. Hopefully sooner.
I think you're right.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you.
Now, what do we have?
We have
one of
Professor-
our favorite professors.
And I was just with him last night, Professor Alan Dershowitz. It's so great to have you back here on the show. What an event last night at the ZOA. That was awesome.
How come I wasn't invited?
Oh, you were flying back. You were traveling.
Your name was mentioned a few times, however, all very positive.
That's right. We talked about Katz and Cosby.
Oh, I thought you mentioned the word common sense.
Well, that too. That too.
Rita, I'll tell you, if anybody ever wants an MC, there's nobody as good as Rita Cosby. She is fantastic.
I agree.
She kept the event going. She was humorous. She, a lot of people were falling asleep.
And she's not even Jewish.
Right, and that's probably why they wanted to listen to her. But the story she told about her father helping Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto, it kept people riveted. I mean, she's better than a Jew. She is somebody
thank
who
you,
helped
Professor.
Jews at the time of turmoil. She was absolutely fantastic. And
okay,
Professor, thank you.
Numbers on Jewish votes for the country. What were they?
Yeah, this is amazing. 30%, which was the same number as last time, Professor Dershowitz. Why are more Jews not voting for Trump after, what does it take? I mean, October 7th. Oh, my goodness.
People aren't counting right. That's J Street's numbers. Don't believe a word J Street ever says. It counts people who hate Israel as Jews. It counts anti-Semites as Jews. If you go and ask people who live in Jewish communities, the vote was different. Many, many more people in Brooklyn and in parts, of Long Island, where there are Jewish communities.
Yeah, well, this is Pete King.
The votes were overwhelmingly in favor of Trump in some of those neighborhoods. So don't believe what J Street says.
Yeah, Alan's saying this is Pete King. I can tell you in Long Island, in the 5 towns, the Republicans got 90% of the vote of the Orthodox Jewish community in those 5 towns.
And by the way, they were saying 43 to 46% in New York State, which is huge. That's huge. It just was nationally 30%.
Well, I don't believe the 30% figure.
I hope it's bigger. I do. I agree with you. I hope it's bigger.
What people use,
like always, they're trying to blame it on the Jews.
But they use the Hitler definition of a Jew. If your grandparent was Jewish, you're a Jew. That's not the definition that should be used. If you live a Jewish life, if you live as a Jew, what percentage of those people voted for Trump? Very different than if one of your grandparents happened to be Jewish and you're technically a Jew, but never have been near a synagogue, never have been to Israel, never have supported Israel. Those aren't the kind of Jews that should be counted when you're asking what impact President Trump's support of Israel during his first term had on the voters. I think a considerable number of people who didn't previously vote for him did vote for him this time, but it doesn't show up in the kind of counting that J Street and some other groups do.
Alan, did any president ever do more than Donald Trump? I mean, you think of the bringing the embassy to Jerusalem,
Abraham Accords.
I mean, undoubtedly, to me.
I gave him advice on the Golan Heights. He asked me for my legal advice as to whether it was legally permissible for Israel to claim sovereignty over the Golan Heights. He called me. I gave him my advice. He listened to me. He listened to other people as well. I'm not taking credit for this. He certainly listened to David Friedman. But he then recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And so, no president has done as much, maybe since Harry Truman. Harry Truman, after all, recognized Israel's
and also Nixon in 1973. But, I mean, sustained
one
activity.
More thing about Trump. A lot of CNN is going crazy over the fact that Trump wants to fire some generals. That's the way it should be. We have civilian control of the military. Generals don't make decisions except tactical ones. We make the policy decisions. The President of the United States does. Lincoln fired his generals. The most famous thing that Truman did was to fire the most popular general probably in the Second World War after Eisenhower, General MacArthur. So presidents should be in charge of who the generals are. And yet you get Leon Panetta saying, it's the road to tyranny if a president interferes with who gets promoted to be general. No, as commander-in-chief, you are the civilian head of the army, and you make decisions. And President Trump is right when he says he's going to fire these DEI generals, the ones who think that you can fight a war effectively by having diversity, equity, and inclusion rather than talent and meritocracy as the dominant factors in who becomes active in the military. So Trump's right on that one. He's not right on everything, but he's certainly right on that one.
Leon Panetta, isn't he one of the 51 intelligence officers that signed that document?
And I think there will be some consequences for that.
Let's hope so.
There will be some hearings because that was an outrage. Those 51 people who used their credibility and the credibility of the office given to them in the United States to tell a lie and to try to persuade the American people by putting their credibility behind this that a false fact was true.
And we just told Lara that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court 20 minutes ago decided that they're not going to count the ballots without dates on them in Pennsylvania.
Well, look, that's the right thing to do. Voter integrity is crucially important. Lara Trump is a terrific, terrific woman. And, I live in Florida. And she's somebody I could easily vote for if she runs for the Senate.
That's what you tell the IRS. You live in Florida. I'm not going to say anything different.
I'm leaving for Florida in about a week. So next time you call me,
and I
guaranteed
I'm going to be living in Florida at least 186 days, too.
Yeah, Professor Dershowitz, let's get to some of the this is amazing. President Biden came out and he said he's going to lift some sanctions on Hamas and Hezbollah, and yet he's going after Israel. What is going on with this president?
I don't know. The same thing happened in the last days of the Obama administration when he allowed a resolution to go through that said that Israel's control of the holiest site in Judaism, the Western Wall, akin to the Vatican, to Catholicism, or Salt Lake City to Mormons, that was illegally occupied territory. That just was his revenge, Obama's revenge. That's what caused me to break my relationship with him. I knew Obama since he was a law school student. He invited me over and over again to the White House, including meetings in the Oval Office to advise him in Iran. But once he was agreeable not to veto that one-sided resolution calling Jerusalem occupied territory, that was it. I hope Biden's not going to do the same thing in his last week.
Well, he just ordered the Ukraine to shoot missiles to Moscow. But Putin is much too smart to start World War III.
I don't think we're going to see World War III. Certainly not, with Trump there, because he's a guy who for 4 years there were no wars. There was peace. There was no real terrorism in Israel. And I think that the new sheriff is going to start deterring people from acting badly. Already Iran has indicated it's not going to take revenge against Israel for its destruction of so many of the facilities because they're afraid of Trump. And so I think already he's having an impact even before he's elected, much like Ronald Reagan had an impact on getting the hostages back from Iran even before he was elected, and they were released at the moment of his inauguration. I suspect we'll see a little bit of that going on as well.
Professor Dershowitz, thank you so much for coming on. We love you.
Thank you,
and,
Professor.
We'll talk to you again real soon.
And also, by the way, Professor, I want to give you a shout out on your new book that you're giving out to 1 million college students, 1,000 around the world. 10 big anti-Israel lies and how to refute them with truth. Love it.
By the way, we're going to give him that other book, too, and he's coming on right after Professor Dershowitz. Charlie Gasparino. Go woke, go broke.
Yeah, I agree with that, too.
Thank you,
All
Professor.
Right, thank you. Let's take a break, and we're going to come back with Go Woke, Go Broke.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. And joining us now is the author of Go Woke, Go Broke, as we are talking so much about what's going on with the economy.
We're going to package his book along with Professor Dershowitz.
Oh, wow. That's called a twofer. Is that what that's called? A twofer. All right. Well, joining us now is Charlie Gasparino. Hey, Charlie, first of all, what happened with Spirit Airlines? What a mess.
It's been a mess now for a long time. By the way, I'm in Florida. I'm moving to Florida.
You too.
You guys
at least 185 days a year.
Yeah, we're gonna do some live broadcasts from down here soon. I'm actually at a conference, but I don't want to leave. Here's the thing: Spirit Airlines was a long burn to bankruptcy. It was, I did a story about this 6 months ago, where I recall saying that bankruptcy is an inevitability. The airline business is just horrible. It's highly regulated. You don't want to kind of be against high regulations in airlines, because then a plane crashes and then all of a sudden you're on the hook for it, right? So it's just not a great business, and it's hard when you have a lot of debt, which they had, and listen, it's in Chapter 11. I don't think it's going away. It's going to be reorganized, but my guess. Bondholders, I know a little bit in the weeds here. A lot of my sources are distressed investors, and they've been loading up on Spirit Airlines debt at distressed levels, thinking that when it emerges from bankruptcy, instead of, they buy it at, say, 30 cents on the dollar. I'm just throwing that number out there, but it's at some depressed level. And then it's worth 50 cents on the reorganization. That's just the way these things work. There's a whole class of investors that are doing that. And, my sources were doing it, signaling the bankruptcy, I would say, about 6 months ago.
Charlie, this is Pete King. That whole JetBlue Spirit merger. First of all, the DOJ got involved. They didn't even allow for any mitigation. And Tish James, New York Attorney General. JetBlue is a New York company. They're based here in New York. Talk about people driving business out of New York.
This shows you how stupid the Democratic Party is on these mergers. Lena Khan, the whole Biden administration, stopped every media company from merging. Okay, that's as all, and this deal as well. When you are a weak company, you're supposed to merge with a stronger company. It saves jobs, creates efficiencies of scales. Maybe not save all the jobs, but it's better than the alternative, which is Chapter 11 and Chapter 7, Chapter 11, where if you don't do the deal, you may have to sell off all the parts. Now, you see what I'm saying? Then you liquidate, and that's definitely a job killer. Now, here's the good news. The Trump administration is going to come in, and they're going to have a much laxer definition of antitrust. And by the way, you can't get any worse than Lena Khan at the FTC or what's going on at the DOJ antitrust division. So there's a chance that deal can go through. Tish James has sued in the past other deals. I think she sued on the Sprint T-Mobile deal. Not that I think I know. She lost in court. She will lose probably here because it's stupid and there's nothing anti-competitive of a weak company being bought by a stronger company and saving jobs. And that's the problem. I mean, this administration has been so absurdly dumb when it comes to capitalism. They really have no clue. I mean, leftists of the worst order were in every major economic regulatory position. And, you know, here's the thing. I tweeted this out today. Even Democrats in business right now are happy that Trump is elected. And aside from the far left Looney Tunes, this guy is going to be so much better for business and for corporate America. And I don't mean corporate America like they can rape and pillage and, you know, make a lot of money. You know, them, you know, moving businesses here, keeping jobs, making money. That's how they expand and hire more people. This is going to be so much better. Nothing could be worse, by the way. So this is going to be a lot better.
Yeah, nothing could be worse.
Charlie, how's your book doing?
It's doing well. I sold a bunch of copies here. I'm at a conference, something called the 10X conference down in Aventura, Florida. Grant Cardone is an influencer and real estate investor. He bought a bunch of books for me, and I spoke a little at his conference and interviewed some amazing people. I moderated a panel, or interviewed Don Peebles. I don't know if you know Don.
Oh, yeah, sure, from New York, yeah.
He ran for
Really
mayor.
Smart guy. I ran for mayor, and I told him he should run for mayor again. He said no thanks.
He learned his lesson.
Charlie, thank
We
you.
got to take a break, Charlie.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay.
We love you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have fun in
Enjoy.
Florida.
Okay, Rita, give us the hot news of the day, and make sure you tell them that you corrected me. It wasn't $9.2 million in South Carolina. It was $9.2 million. Newsom bought a new house in California.
All right, there you go. And by the way, it's still equally beautiful, I'm sure, at $9.2 million. And here are the other hot
News
stories.
of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
Well, President Biden is giving the okay to Ukraine to strike Russia with U.S.-made long-range missiles. This comes after news of many North Korean soldiers arriving at the front to fight alongside Russian troops. Things certainly seem to be escalating. And also, the murder trial of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley is in its second day. Prosecutors say Laken fought for her life. The accused killer, Jose Ibarra, is an illegal immigrant from Venezuela with several prior charges. And those are the big headlines of the day.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And welcome back to Katz and Cosby. Well, is Biden inching us closer to World War III, now allowing Ukraine to have these long-range missiles to get into Russia? What is he doing? He's leaving in 2 months. Well, joining us now is KT McFarland, former Deputy National Security Advisor under President Trump. KT, how concerning is this? Wow.
Well, first of all, let me wish you a happy birthday, Rita.
Oh, thank you, KT. Thank you. Love you. Thank you, honey. Thank you.
And then tell you that Joe Biden is crawling up that escalation ladder with no idea where that ladder is going.
Yes, he inching us to World War III on my birthday?
Yeah, right. Quite firecrackers on your birthday. Yeah, he might be, but they don't know. Here's the problem. Is that the whole policy of the Biden administration is that they don't want a negotiation. They've stopped Ukraine from negotiating with the Russians because they don't want to, quote, reward Russia. But they also have no plan for Ukraine to win without the United States getting militarily involved ourselves, which we don't want to do, which isn't the right thing to do. And I think they're trying to sabotage President Trump's ability to conduct negotiations before he takes office. Trump has said, I'm going to end this war. I'm going to negotiate a solution. And we all know, as all of us fellow New Yorkers know, Donald Trump is one of the great negotiators of all time. If you look at his record as president, Abraham Accords, trade agreements, trade wars, and then trade agreements, let Donald Trump do the deal. But the Biden administration is just so terrified that they're going to have a success in a Trump administration that they were unable to do, that they're willing to walk up that escalation ladder with no idea where it goes.
Yeah, that's scary stuff. Judge Weinberg.
KT, could you please explain to me why the Biden administration is letting Hezbollah and Hamas off the hook and they're imposing sanctions on Israel? I must have missed the explanation for that.
Well, there is no explanation other than the Democrats care a lot more about the far left, pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic elements of their own party. And when you see the anti-Semitic demonstrations all around the country, the fact that the Biden administration just sort of poo-poos, looks the other way, doesn't say anything about it, it's like a tacit approval of rampant anti-Semitism in the far left of the Democrat Party.
And how come Schumer will not let the anti-Semitism bill through the Senate? Now he's trying to conjoin it with the defense bill. It should be a standalone bill, don't you think?
Absolutely, but I stopped trying to figure out what Chuck Schumer is all about a long time ago.
Yeah, and he's the highest ranking, Jewish American in politics. I mean, that's an incredible feat that he's not. It seems like he's doing these blockings, and it's, by the way, it's going to be fascinating to see the juxtaposition, because when President Trump comes in, he's the opposite. He's full steam ahead. He's even talking about withholding funds for some of these colleges that are not condemning anti-Semitism. Talk about what a change this is going to be, and what a breath of fresh air, KT, when he comes in.
Well, countries around the world are already making their bets. Iran has said, well, maybe we should have negotiations. Qatar has kicked out the Hamas political leadership out of Qatar and said, we don't want anything to do with the Hamas guys. Hamas has even said it wants a deal. China has said that they want to have a good relationship with the United States. Russia has said, maybe we should negotiate an end to the war. Even Zelensky of Ukraine has come out and said it. So all these countries are kind of positioning themselves because they know there's going to be a new sheriff in town. And they know that Donald Trump not only is decisive, but he's also been very successful in his foreign policy in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, KT, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the sweet greetings. Thank you.
Bye, birthday girl.
Thank you very much, KT. Thank you, honey.
Okay, who are we bringing in?
Now we have Greg Jarrett, Fox News legal analyst. Greg, great to have you here. Tomorrow, huge decision coming down from Judge Merchan in New York. He's going to decide whether or not to keep this conviction against Donald Trump, that whole hush money case, which was so ridiculous. What do you think he's going to do?
Well, first of all, happy birthday, and I hope you got the bouquet of red roses and chocolates that I sent.
Thank you. Was that the whole truckload, or was that the half truckload that was from you?
It's the half truck. I'm on a budget.
Thank you, Greg. I love you, my friend. Thank you so much, Greg.
Well, listen, the lawfare campaign is collapsing, as it should. Biden's DOJ and these Democrat prosecutors, including Alvin Bragg, thought their cases against Trump would ruin him. And instead, Americans saw it for what it was, a corrupt attempt to influence the election. It didn't work. It solidified Americans' revulsion and disgust at how these opponents weaponized the law for political gains. And Trump was very good at flipping the tables from villain to victim. He made his case in the court of public opinion. A majority of voters issued their verdict on Election Day. The truth is, none of these cases should ever have been brought. They were convoluted, legally unsound, and shamefully punitive. And, Juan Merchan should toss out the jury's verdict tomorrow, but he's probably not going to do it. He has a record of doing the wrong thing.
So what do you think he does then? So if he doesn't, then the sentencing comes up. Do you think he's actually going to sentence him to maybe prison time or house arrest or something kooky like that? That's amazing. The American public has spoken, Greg.
Yeah. If he rejects the motion tomorrow, refuses to dismiss the case, then it moves forward to sentencing on the 26th of this month. Now, what are his options here? He can impose a sentence, or he can delay a sentence until after the president leaves office in 2029. The problem with that is that the law in New York has a 12-month limit. You have to bring a sentence within 12 months of a jury's verdict. So putting it off, I'm not sure, would even be legally sound. The law doesn't even support, in a case like this, jail time. But I don't put it past Merchan to try to do it anyway. But he certainly cannot, send Trump off to the hoosegow between now and Inauguration Day, that would be a violation of the Presidential Transition Act passed by Congress. It prohibits any disruption in the transfer of executive power. And besides that, Trump has an immediate right to a stay pending appeal, which would go on for years. And I guarantee you, once this case gets in front of the appellate courts or the highest court in New York, it'll get tossed because this was a case that should never have been brought. It was completely absurd top to bottom.
Judge Weinberg, real quick.
And Greg, as you know, there were so many errors on rulings on evidence allowing in official acts of the president. That's enough to taint the entire trial, to throw out everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You had not just presidential records, which are excluded under the Supreme Court ruling, but you had testimony from White House aides of what was going on in the White House. That is absolutely prohibited under the Supreme Court immunity ruling. And it is not just, ancillary, as prosecutors allege. It's so important to prosecutors that in their closing arguments, they repeated it and emphasized it to the jury. So in many ways, it was central to the case, which under the Supreme Court ruling means, it was inadmissible. That's a reversible error.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, keep us posted. We're going to see what happens tomorrow. I agree with you. This judge has been so over the top. Who knows just what he'll do? But I have a feeling you're right. I have a feeling he's going to keep it tomorrow, and then it'll just drag on and on and on. Greg, thank you so much, and thank you for the flowers.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you, my friend. Greg. Thank you. And by the way, everybody, also nearly 1.3 million New Yorkers are struggling to feed themselves and their families. So please consider partnering with the WABC Foundation, AARP of New York, the Catholic Charities, and St. Francis Feeding the Hungry. There are so many hungry people. Help those in need. And with your help, we can. Last year, we fed, John, over 10,000 families, and this year we're looking to do much more. So go to WABCRadio.com/turkey to feed the hungry this holiday season.
And Gristedes and D'Agostino and WABC are participating.
Awesome.
And we have to feed the hungry. And let's take a break, and we're going to come back with Bill O'Reilly, who made a great contribution today for feeding the hungry.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And this just in on Katz and Cosby, a story in the New York Times saying how Kamala Harris burned through $1.5 billion in 15 weeks, talking about the spending on corporate jets and consultants and also all these different
and she's still
interviews.
20 million short.
Yeah, and she's still 20 million short. You know what's amazing, John, too? We heard 1 billion. Now we're hearing 1.5 billion, and she owes money.
Wait, we heard that Oprah got 1 million. The number is 2.5 million.
Isn't that amazing? For her production company.
I wouldn't have voted for her, but I would have done it for less.
I would have done it for less. We could have split it.
Yes.
Maybe that would have been a good deal. Let's go to Bill O'Reilly.
How about Bill O'Reilly will come in with us on that deal?
Bill, would you come in with us on that deal on a $2.5 million for interviewing her? I think so.
No, you can't buy me, Rita.
Shoot. I thought I could all these years. Shoot.
I'm Elliot Ness's cousin. I'm not coming in.
We didn't say you had to vote for her. We just said you had to do the interview, you know?
Yeah. First of all, happy birthday. My first job was at Carvel. I made those dopey cakes.
Oh, thank you, Bill. Thank you for the birthday
wishes. Can you
wishes.
prove that you worked at Carvel, please?
Yeah, I did. I worked Old Country Road, Westbury.
Is there a picture of you?
Yeah. That was my first job, and I was good at it. I think that was the last job where they ever liked me.
Oh, my God. By the way, we had the best Carvel cake. It was great. Thank you, John, for bringing it. It was awesome.
I got notice because we're in the real estate department. Our real estate department got notice that Tom Carvel's ranch is being sold upstate.
Oh.
I don't even want 35 million.
I actually knew him before he passed. And he was a very charitable guy. He's Greek, and another self-made man, just like Katzimatidis. Anyway, if I were Trump, I would have the FEC, Federal Election Commission, investigate the campaign. It may look like small ball, but it's not. So you have Oprah Winfrey accepting $2.5 million. She tried to deceive everyone in the beginning. She denied everything. Then the Washington Examiner, which broke the story, got the data that $1 million was given to Harpo, and now the New York Times says $2.5 million. The New York Times is not a source of information that I entirely trust, but this goes against their grain. So you got to say, well, I don't think they would make this up or fabricate it. So I'm going to assume it's true. If that's true, then the federal government has to look into Harpo, which is Oprah's company, has to. But even worse than that is the Al Sharpton $500,000 coming into his charity, whatever you want to call it, his organization.
Yeah, the National Action Network.
Remember, Sharpton makes an enormous salary from that, enormous. And then he turns around on NBC.
One correction. He makes it tax-free.
Because these foundations are very easy to grift. So $500K goes in there, and then 2 weeks later he does a cupcake interview with Kamala Harris on NBC News' air, MSNBC. You can't do this. This you could almost go into the fraud area. You almost have the Justice Department look into it if you've got an attorney general who knows what they're doing. Okay? But I would first give it to the FEC to absolutely get every piece of documentation there is. This is serious stuff. And people are kind of laughing it off, up. Yeah, we all know about the media. I was listening to you guys earlier, but I had to bail for a few minutes. Did you talk about the Scarborough meeting at Mar-a-Lago?
No, go ahead, because that's interesting, too.
All right, so this Morning Joe crew, which does not have much of an audience, never has, but the D.C. and Manhattan pinheads on the left watch it. So they apparently show up at Mar-a-Lago to make nice with Donald Trump. And there's a picture and all that. They didn't do that on their own. They were ordered to do that. NBC, as well as ABC and CBS, knows they're in big trouble. MSNBC's numbers are down 43% in prime time. That's Armageddon. So all three networks know that they are going to hemorrhage viewers because they cover the campaign dishonestly, and they did.
Yeah, they did. You know what's interesting, Bill? Did you see The View was trashing Morning Joe? They were mad that they even went to talk to Trump. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, that's the last holdout. I kind of almost respect The View because they're going to go down like the Alamo. They're not going to give up. So Morning Joe and his wife, they'll run over. They'll do what they're told, okay, to protect their paychecks. But The View, they'll go down in flames. So something about that I kind of like.
Yeah, at least you know where they stand, right? That's amazing. It is amazing. Now, you wanted to talk about New York City about to change. How so? For the better or worse?
Well, it's a real sad situation, and I don't have time to get into it responsibly with you tonight. But I'll give you a headline, and then maybe the next time we chat, we'll get into it. Out in California, the voters got rid of 3 progressive district attorneys in San Francisco, in Los Angeles County, and in Oakland. They were the worst of the worst, these 3. Alvin Bragg is just as bad as they are. Yet an article today in the New York Post said if Bragg runs for re-election, he'll win. That's a skin color vote. And I'm getting about as fed up as I can get. What are you voting for if you want Alvin Bragg to return? What? Disorder in the streets, fear in the subways. You can't even buy an aspirin in a CVS because they have to lock up everything because shoplifting is not prosecuted. A Marine in the subway, you're prosecuting that person. I think that person's going to. There's absolutely no beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think there'll be a hung jury there. And then the Trump thing. This is all Alvin Bragg, and you're voting for this. I'm sorry, you're not a good person if you cast a ballot for Alvin Bragg, in my opinion. I know that's harsh, but you're not a good person if that's what you want for this city.
You know, Bill, I will say it is astounding because we have seen this change. Like you brought up San Francisco. I think of also in L.A., Gascon. I mean, he was a disaster. I was so happy they finally got him out. But it's like the Democrats it doesn't sound like they have a primary person for him. I mean, that's what they're reporting, that it is amazing. And what does that say? There was just a horrible attack just recently. We were talking about it earlier. 2 people killed and another,
Two people were stabbed to death this morning, and the woman was also stabbed, and she's in critical condition.
Yeah. I mean, what more does it take?
8 prior arrests. 8 prior arrests.
I can't blame Bragg for that in a city of 8.5 million people. But I can, with authority, say that thousands of people have died because of Alvin Bragg. Because he will not prosecute most crimes. Most arrests in New York City are not prosecuted. That is a fact. So the police are running around doing their job.
That way, arrests are down.
And the DA will prosecute.
Right. Not only they're not prosecuting, the police officers, the arrests are down because they're not, arresting.
So you're voting for that? That's what you're voting for?
Not us.
No, I understand. But I think that good people have to start speaking out.
Yeah, and also take a cue from what happened in California, like you said. I mean, if they can get rid of a Gascon and some of these others, which are definitely in the same league, also Soros funded, you would think it'd be a wake-up call to New York, right, Bill?
Well, they booted him in Chicago. They booted him in St. Louis. But New York, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely absurd and irresponsible.
It is. And Bill, also, before we let you go, I know that you made a beautiful contribution to feeding the hungry. Bravo to you, too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're up against the clock, I understand. But years ago, I gave Al Sharpton a lot of money because he had run out of money, and he could not have the annual Thanksgiving turkey giveaway. And I'm glad I did it. I hope he didn't take the money. I don't think he did. But I gave a donation, and people should not in this country go hungry anytime. But Thanksgiving, no. So I'm happy to give to WABC, and I hope everybody listening does as well.
Absolutely. Bill, you're such a good human being. Thank you for helping them and making a Thanksgiving special to so many people in New York and elsewhere. You're terrific. Bill, we love you.
Happy birthday, Rita. Have fun.
Oh, Bill, thank you. Love you very much. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. Bill, thank you. And everybody, what do we all stand for?
Truth,
justice, and the American way. And I'm going to go celebrate my birthday.